Hi. I'm going to speak about Steve as a teacher. I also knew him quite well as the producer of a lot of new and innovative, very important work in Marxian theory, but I won't be speaking about that. I'll leave that up to other people who represent EXO, Rethinking Marxism, to Rick Wolff to talk about. I thought I would just speak about my experience with Steve as a teacher. And thinking about it, the thing that came to mind is that, boy, was I really lucky to have had Steve as a teacher. First at CCNY and then here at UMass. When I recently visited his wife, Charlotte, she told me that Steve used to spend hours preparing every lecture. And that rang true to me because I knew how good he was in his classes. I remember his syllabi. They went on for pages and pages. And this is not just his graduate syllabi, where you might expect something like that. This was his undergraduate syllabi as well, and I had Steve first as an undergraduate at City College of New York. The number 30 pages long comes to mind. It couldn't have been that, but that's what comes to mind. This was his course on economic development. And I know his syllabi for his graduate courses were like that as well. I remember the comments that Steve would put on my papers and everybody else's paper that I could see. They were long, detailed comments with feedback that you wouldn't believe, and not just about the content, but also about the writing. And they were done in pencil, meaning that he took time to write and rewrite so that he could tell it just like it was, in a very effective way. That was a lot of work. I remember that I learned a lot of economics from Steve. And the key thing here is that I learned a lot of Marxian economics from Steve, but I also learned about neoclassical economics from Steve. In fact, if there is one person from whom I learned what neoclassical economics was all about, and then to learn the techniques and to learn this and that concept about how to put it all together as an ideology, as a systemic way of thinking, that was Steve. So Steve was indeed a great teacher, as others have said here. I say this, that it was only because I tried to model myself after Steve as I went on to become a teacher myself. He was a model for me. And I tried to model myself after him, and I don't think I ever came close to being as good as he was. And I hope that that says less about me and more about Steve. He's really exceptional in that way. But there was more to Steve than being a teacher in his lectures, in his syllabi, in his teaching of economic concepts. There was his mentorship, his advice, his care, his gentility, and his honesty. And I think that other people here have used words like that, if not exactly those words. And the fact that we all came up with these same things means that obviously there is something there. It's not just smoke. Let me just say something about his mentorship, and I'm going to conclude with that. And it is in the context of his mentorship that I am going to say something about class, the notion of class. Again, it's in my own experience as a teacher that lets me see just how important Steve's mentorship was for me and for his other students. I teach at a small liberal arts college where they put a lot of emphasis on advising, on mentoring students. I will tell you that I always resisted kind of that job being given to me, to be a mentor towards my students. My model was that, look, when I went to college, we didn't have advisors. You know, it seemed to be like extra fluff stuff being peddled, right, to students as consumers in very expensive places. At City College, we didn't have any formal, you know, advising relationships. So I said, you know, you go out and learn on your own. You know, go seek your own, you know, people to make friends with and to talk the way, you know, we did it at City College when I was going to school. I realize now, in fact, that if I was lucky in having met Steve, it wasn't just because he was a good teacher, but because he was a great mentor. And I think I had taken that for granted and not understood just how important that was. When Steve came to City College, where I first met him, together with Rick Wolf, that was at the time, as other people have alluded, I think is not alluded, where he had become radicalized, he had become political, and where he had turned to the notion of class. And you couldn't believe how excited Steve was, together with Rick at the time, to be teaching working class kids, and on the basis of that commitment to knowledge and class, he and Rick both worked with a group of us, and there's at least 3 of us here that go back that far with Rick and Steve. There's Jack, there's me, there's Jonathan Millman, who was sitting, but there were other students at the time. And we were incredibly nurtured by Rick and by Steve. We were part of a common enterprise with them. We were part of them and they were part of us. We felt like we were working at something very important with them in learning critical economics, in learning the type of economics that could make a difference in the world, could change it for the better. Steve left City College together with Rick to come up here when the new program was developed here. I came here the year after that, and I continued my work being a student, being mentored by Steve here. I could have him as a professor in my graduate classes. He had taken me to visit one of his graduate classes at the Graduate Center in CUNY, so I had seen what graduate classes were all about. That was part of his mentoring, kind of teaching me how, you know, the world of academia worked. I was a kid fresh off the boat. I was a first-generation college student. I was a working-class kid. I really didn't know anything about this world of academia in the U.S. And so he took it upon himself to show me the ropes a little bit, to kind of tell me what graduate work would be like. He was trying to encourage me, and that work continued here. When I came up here, I had him as a teacher. I didn't always, you know, satisfy him. You know, he didn't always, he didn't shy away from criticizing my work, but I learned a lot from him, and I never felt any less love from him when I didn't do as well as I might have done at certain other times. He was always very supportive. His friendship continued, and not only did his friendship continue, but his sense of community for the project with me, with the other graduate students that have come along from City College to follow him up here, continued. but he also opened up his family to us. We all became friends. And I just want to conclude with kind of thanking his family, and they're all here, for sharing him with us for the many years that they did share him with us. So Steve, we love you. I left Steve about 30 years ago that I left college, that I graduated from, and I went to work. I kept in touch with him, I didn't keep in touch with him as closely as other people did, but he was always deep. His presence was always deep and important for me. And I have thought about Steve more than I've thought about anybody else over the last few months. It's a little difficult to think of the world without him, but it has brought back a lot of good memories and a lot of important connections. So thank you again to all of you. Thank you to Charlotte, to Karen, Peter, and Lynn for sharing your father and your husband with all of us, and thank you all for remembering it.